All right, one more time. So how did you get in the UFO field?
I got interested in it during my college studies in the early, I don't know, late 80s, I should say. I'd spend my summer times trying to devour as much information as I could about the enigma, whether through books or old MUFON journals or Afro bulletins, and came to the conclusion that there's something to this. And ever since then, it's been a single-minded focus of mine to try to find at least some answers to what's going on, and try to find some answers as to what's not going on too. It's a never-ending journey with this kind of field. So fascinating, you know.
So have you actually had any of your own sightings that you would equate as extraterrestrial?
No, I've never experienced anything anomalous.
Oh wow!
Which I get a little pushback for. Yeah, I've never seen anything at all. Which doesn't lessen my fascination. But no, I've never seen anything. No, never have. I would love to one day, but if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, then that's the way it goes.
I'm trying to remember what. So you're in Texas. I'm trying to remember what number Texas was as far as sightings go. So it goes. I know it goes. Washington's number one. We have sightings all the time here. Montana's number two. Oh hell, who's number three? I think Alaska's number four. Which, Alaska being number four actually surprises me because I expect them to be higher up on the level.
Yeah, it's a little counterintuitive. Sometimes you would think, okay, they're going to have more sightings where there's more population, more chances for individuals to see something, and that's not always the case. I know Texas has been consistently, I think, at least top third, top half at times, and it's dropped off at times. But like what we're going to discuss tonight, sometimes a lot of it has to do with, are UFOs in the news? Is there a interest in it other than the normal interest that would motivate people to look up and be more aware of their surroundings? It may be something like that. So. Texas has its moments, but because there's a lot of land, there's a lot of people, but at times when sightings drop off, it may just simply be that people aren't really looking up. They're not really making the effort to observe things. So other parts of the country, they always are. I mean, and you're right about the Pacific Northwest, Alaska. People are very aware of their surroundings in those parts of the country. So when something anomalous appears, they pick it up. They're aware of it. They make a sighting report. So,
No,
maybe I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. So in your 80s, you've been in this field for way like 15 years longer than me. What was the most exciting case that you researched?
One that happened. One that I investigated, looked at real time, was the Phoenix Lights case, because I was. I'm using the word multiple. There were thousands of witnesses to this. There were trained pilots, commercial and military pilots. Some retired. The national media actually covered it. The local media covered it in a legitimate manner. It wasn't made fun of. And you had objects sighted over a large swath of the state that were moving pretty slowly. There was video evidence, and that's a really strong case. I mean, some of these things that were seen were clearly not extraterrestrial, but a good percentage are still remain unexplained. And for me, that was an exciting case because you had so many witnesses. You had, especially the commercial and retired military pilots reporting things. These are trained observers that know what aircraft are supposed to look like, and they're saying things like, I don't know what the hell that was. And that goes a long way. That kind of testimony. That was an exciting case. That's still an enigma to this day. Almost 22 years later.
Now, everyone's been holding their breaths for disclosure, and my personal opinion, disclosure happened in '52 with the flyover of Washington D.C. I've always said that. No, I'll always believe that. Do you think? Well, first of all, what's your definition of disclosure?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess I can preface it that I think a lot of people really don't know how they would define that. Some people define disclosure as a total release of files and evidence the government or the military has. Now, I guess by the strictest definition, that's what it would be. But you're right. Concerning the Washington National sightings, there's been solid sighting reports and occurrences that have happened that have kind of confirmed the reality of this phenomenon. Maybe confirmation is a better term. I don't know. My professional position has always been that the government or the military has no motivation to release what they may or may not have at all. We can't force them to do it. So it would take some sort of event or something to either force them to change their method of operation or an event they couldn't deny. And certainly the Washington sightings in '52 qualify. I mean, they were over the Capitol. I mean, you can't belittle that case. You can't deny it. So,
well,
yeah.
I've got to bring this up to you because somebody actually posted in the FMP group that that was actually a German aircraft that flew over the White House because they were trying to expose Operation Paperclip or get help for Paperclip. No. German aircraft wouldn't be able to enter that airspace for one. Only a UFO could do that. Only an off-world craft would be able to would have the capacity of getting that close, unidentified. And
agreed. Yeah.
What I like about that case is the fact that there are radar returns as well. So I mean, they had radar evidence as well as thousands of people that witnessed that case.
Agreed, totally. I mean, if those were craft from another nation on Earth, they would have been shot down. They would have been engaged and been shot down. But what was reported over the Capitol were aircraft that we couldn't track, we couldn't fire upon, we couldn't catch up to because of the flight characteristics. So they were clearly not terrestrial in origin. So any kind of earthly explanation, as far as another nation's aircraft, that doesn't hold any water. And beyond the physical characteristics, there's no documentation at all to support that theory.
Agreed.
So clearly these were unidentified that weren't terrestrial in origin. That says it all right there. Otherwise, they would have been shot down. We would have had wreckage. They would have been engaged in normal dogfight fashion, but they weren't.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Completely agree.
Yeah.
So, Keith.
Yeah.
So, you're familiar with the 52 flyover, correct?
Only vaguely. I've done no research on it myself. But there are some things that don't add up as far as the whole 9 yards goes.
Right. I'd like you to go look at that. Look at the pictures and see if you can identify which race it was. That's what I'd be curious about.
I mean, you can tell me where I can find them. That'd help.
Just Google 52 White House flyover. It's well documented historically.
Okay, I'll see what I can come up with. Google and I, to be honest, are not friends.
So, real quick, before we go on, I want to go over J. Allen Hynek's classification. We've actually never done this on the show, and I feel embarrassed because for being a 3-year-old show, this is something we should have done a long time ago. But so J. Allen Hynek actually created a UFO classification system. C1 through C3 was actually his. C4, I believe, was actually Jacques Vallée, which got involved with that one. And then I know Stephen Greer jumped on the C5. I'm not sure who did the C6 and C7. So C1...
neither am I. No.
No. So see, a close encounters of the first kind is any unidentified flying object that is 500 feet or under. And that's going by the classification. So, I mean, if you're seeing a star that's moving 45 degrees and going Mach 7, to me it'd still be a CE1. But you got to figure, I don't think J.L. Hynek was planning on people seeing these as often as we're seeing them now. So that's just your common craft. A C2 is physical signs. That's I think of X-Files where they're driving down the road and the car shuts off. Perfect example of a CE2. Interference with a vehicle or any kind of electronics, animals reacting, which we see animals reacting in all aspects of the paranormal, so that's common. Paralysis, heat or discomfort of the witness, or ground trace. So I would think, what do you think, crop circles? Will that be a CE2?
Yeah, if you're able to make the connection between crop circles and UFOs.
That reminds me of,
yeah.
That reminds me of a video I saw one time where they were in England, actually, and I can't remember I don't even know if the video is out anymore, but you saw an orb of light that went over a field, and it vanished, and there was a crop circle right underneath it. Have you ever seen that video?
No, I haven't. I can't say I have. No. I'm very cautious with stuff on the internet. I'm another one that I'm not crazy with. I'm crazy about Google, but
Right.
no, you're right. A CE2 would, a crop circle scenario. If that is directly connected with UFO, that would be definitely a CE2. It's a physical effect. It's a trace. It's almost like, when you said when there was an interaction with a car, or a craft lands and takes off and it leaves a burn mark or radiation traces. Yeah, it's got the solid
Right.
CE2. Yeah.
So a CE3 is occupants seen in a craft. Now I'm going to switch over to Ted Betcher, who did entity classification. So by Ted Betcher's entity classification system, an A is any entity seen inside a craft. B is any entity seen inside and outside a craft. C is any entity seen outside the craft but not in or out. So you just got a being that's outside the craft. You haven't seen him enter or leave. D is entity but no craft, but there's UFO activity seen in the area. E, Echo, is an entity seen but no UFOs in the area. Actually, I think they had one this year in Oregon, as seen by Newfork. An F is no entity, no UFO, but there's communication was achieved. So now we get to the Close Encounter of the Fourth Kind. Great movie, by the way, but the CE4 was actually, it wasn't, it might have been passed on by J.L. Hynek later, but it wasn't on his initial system. I think it was more Jacques Vallée that actually pushed this one, and that's alien abductions. It was Jacques Vallée that actually encouraged non-abduction cases with dreamlike experiences from UFOs as well. So now you got the CE5, which is what Stephen Greer added to this classification, and this involves direct craft communication with a human. I would actually classify this as like my experience in Germany where I shone a flashlight at a star and it shot down. That would be a CE5. So a CE6 is the death of a human or animal due to a UFO experience. And the CE7 is creation of alien hybrid, either through sexual contact or artificial scientific. So that is the classification by J.L. Hynek and some others. PBR's in the chat room saying Greer, oh my. Yeah, I don't care for Greer myself. And so my concept with the whole thing, Greer is on one side going, "Oh, aliens are wonderful. Oh, there are space brothers. Nothing, no such thing as a bad alien." You got Tom DeLonge with To the Stars on the other side going, "Oh, they're all evil. Shoot them all down." And there's no middle ground here. Have you noticed that, William?
Very much so. It's very polarized. It's one or the other. Yeah, and that kind of scenario, I don't think is really valid. I mean, just from a common sense, logical look at it. I mean, look at humans. Are all humans inherently bad? No. Are all humans inherently good? No. Both those positions are too extreme. It's somewhere down the middle. And I would think, with like any other intelligent species, whether you're talking about humans or whales or chimpanzees or aliens, you get good and bad. These are intelligent creatures that would make their own choices. So, yeah, I think that either of those positions is untenable. No, it doesn't make sense. I would like to hear how they came to their conclusions, though, especially DeLonge. What research did he look at to come to that position, or did he just decide to believe that? I don't know. So I'd like to hear that explanation from him, but it may not be forthcoming. So.
And that's what kills me. Isn't Elizondo the same one that was on Clinton's bandwagon? He was going to help Clinton if she became president expose UFOs.
Oh, that was oh God, I'm drawing a blank. That was Clinton's chief of staff, John Podesta.
Podesta, okay,
John Podesta right. worked for he worked for Clinton and he worked for Obama. He was helping Hillary Clinton. He's always been pushing for that for a release of what the government and the military knows, to his credit, and but he's yet to be able to achieve that. So, but no one really has. I mean. Yeah, he's the one that was pushing for it. So, and in his positions, he's had a certain amount of power, but maybe that's why he wasn't able to achieve it. Because there have been more powerful men that have not achieved it either. I mean, my mind immediately goes to Barry Goldwater, the old Republican senator from Arizona. He was a powerful man in Washington, outstanding public servant, but even he couldn't get access to what we had. And that speaks volumes about how deep it is. Because Goldwater had a lot of power in Washington, and even that wasn't enough.
Right.
You know.
Okay, so I'm going to go down. So I kind of made a really. I've been juggling critical thinking class with getting ready for tonight's show. So I threw a really quick timeline starting from 2017, because when you really look at the last 2 years, you'll see, I think, the biggest push in, to be honest with you, I think since Reagan came out and talked about to the UN Security Council about how if there was an outside force, how different the world would be. I mean, that's really the most significant in a long time. And then all of a sudden, 2017, December 16th, you've got the New York Times article. So what was your thoughts when that article came out?
To be honest, I really didn't think the information in the article was that groundbreaking. Documentation has shown that after the Air Force closed Project Blue Book, all that was a closing of the public investigations of UFOs. Mm-hmm. Behind the scenes, they continued. So this idea that the Pentagon was all of a sudden organizing this military effort to investigate UFOs, they didn't stop. They never stopped after Blue Book was closed. So I would have been more surprised if they announced they hadn't been investigating UFOs. It was just confirmation of what a lot of researchers already knew. So but the way I took it was that the media actually reported a UFO story, excuse me, in a legitimate light. That was different. That's what I took for the story. Right. They reported it like a normal news story. The information wasn't groundbreaking, but they reported it without being tongue in cheek, without laughing at it. It was a straightforward news story. They reported it and they didn't laugh about it afterwards. That's what I took from it.
But I think what was shocking to me was the $22 million the government was dumping into UFO projects. I think that was kind of groundbreaking on that side of it, because I don't think many of the public knew that our government was dumping millions into investigation of UFOs.
No, you're right. No, they weren't aware of it. No, they weren't. The general public wasn't aware of that money being spent on that, or that there was an effort being made at all. So yeah, it was, for the general public, it was a big surprise.
Right.
For some of the UFO community, it wasn't. So, but on that angle, that's a good thing. That's a good thing, because when you bring into the scenario the expenditure of taxpayer dollars, that's an eye-opening deal. Because I don't think any of us want our taxpayer dollars wasted. So when a story comes out that details the expenditure of taxpayer dollars, everybody should be interested, because you and I all paid for that. So that certainly opens some eyes as to what's being spent and on what. And for people that are not, I hate to use the word believer, I'm trying to use that word, but for people who don't believe in the reality of UFOs, I can imagine they would be a little upset at $20-some-odd million being spent investigating something they don't believe in. So it certainly made people aware of what's going on, what's being explored. So, in the end result, they may be a good thing. People are actually paying attention to this. So,
and it actually might, it might be one reason we have a spike on UFO. I don't know. So, have you noticed a spike in UFO activity in 2019?
Yeah, I looked that up. I was doing a little quick research this evening, and there's some documentation that supports that. There seems to be that, and I think possibly a reason for that may be the increased interest in the field all of a sudden, because of all this Pentagon / TTSA / Navy scenario. People may be looking around more, maybe are seeing things because they're actually looking up, interested in possibly spotting a UFO, or it may be actually a legitimate increase in UFO activity. Or I tend to think sometimes that it's just people are more interested in the field, and they're reporting things they may have not reported before. Because most sightings go unreported.
Right.
Most do. I mean, most are not reported. So now that it's being treated in a legitimate light and not being made fun of, it may get people more comfortable with the idea of, okay, I saw something like last year or a month ago, and I'm going to report that, as opposed to, like, say 10 years ago, they wouldn't have reported it because they wouldn't be made fun of. But certainly it seems like there's an increase in at least reported activity going on, and that's interesting.
Oh, right. So, Keith, which race was flying over the White House in 1952?
Well, the pictures I saw, I couldn't get a clear look at the pictures, but based on the lighting of them, you're looking at diplomatic consortium.
Okay.
In other words, in contact vessels.
So, how long is the consortium was how old in 1952? How long has the consortium been around?
Longer than current civilization.
Okay. I sound naive, but I'm new to the consortium as far as the last couple of years.
I'd like to say I was.
Oh, so for any new listeners, explain what the consortium is and what their agenda is.
Well, the consortium is a governing body handling the UFO activity, the non-terrestrial activity in the solar system, in this galaxy. Their whole agenda is, number one, to maintain the integrity of the planet, not of the people. However, mankind being the dominant, sentient, surface-dwelling, technologically advanced race on this planet, mankind are designated the caretakers of the planet. Now, of course, if humans kill themselves off, then another race will be designated as caretakers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but the consortium is here to make sure that mankind does not destroy the planet. That's all. And of course, the one thing to keep in mind is the reason for them being involved with humans at all is because, from a civilization standpoint, the socioeconomic development of civilization at this point is extremely fascinating to watch. It's not every century, if you will, that civilization hits this break point where they're either going to evolve or destroy. But this isn't the first time that mankind has gotten to this point.
Okay, and since we got William here, I know he's got some questions too, because he's. Have you studied alien races at all, William, or are you just strictly UFO?
I study occupant cases, and things have been reported. So not just I guess it's not just the UFO deal per se. No, I've studied occupant cases and abductions too. But it's I'm cautious about that because I have yet to find vetted documentation for any of that. So I don't know. That's where I'm at this point. So.
Well, we're going to open your mind tonight. So Keith, let's talk about Roswell real quick, just briefly, and then we'll get back to 2019. Was it a race that actually crashed a ship in Roswell?
Yep. I know you want something a little more than that.
Yeah.
There was actually Roswell wasn't the only crash that happened at that time. It's just the one that got the most publicity.
Right.
Okay, but the reality of it is they had 5 bodies on the ship at that time. 3 of which were dead on impact. 1 of which died later after it got collected, and a 5th one that went missing. Now, ironically enough, the 5th one that went missing was a child. And it got turned over to the natives, to the local natives at the time.
Right.
And I don't mean the U.S. military. I mean what people call the First Nations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it was taken into hiding. Now, quite frankly, it was returned sometime later to the people from the stars. Okay, it was just whisked out of the area before the U.S. military could get a hold of it. Now, we do know that the 3 of them were dead on impact. The 4th one they managed to get into the States, and from my understanding, or into the military containment, if you will. And from my understanding, the thing lived for a good 10 to 15 years after it was collected.
Now, that wouldn't... I know they took a lot of the wreckage to Wright-Patterson. You got some that think it went to Area 51, which is why, and I know y'all biting it to bit. We want... Our listeners in the chat room want to hear about Area 51 being stormed, and we'll get to that. I think it's up to 500,000 people that want to go storm Area 51 now. It'll be at 1 million. Why can't they storm the White House?
Well, that would be the logical place to go.
It would. That's how you get change made. You don't go kill yourselves at Area 51 because you're not going to make it. You got landmines. You got surface-to-air missiles. You got the military. I don't even worry about whacking HUD security. You got the military.
I mean, let's just look at the logistics. Certainly, landmines will only kill the front wave. Then you can walk over the bodies.
Yeah. But Wackenhut Security. Izzy and I were talking earlier about it. Don't say that. Wackenhut Security, I see about the equivalent of Blackwater. They're all useless. When you're dealing with the military, that's a whole other spectrum. And that's who they're going to be messing with. Now, so say they actually get through. How do they plan on getting in these bunkers? All these bunkers are retina scanned. They're, they're so secure. You're not going to break into the bunkers and the hangars that are there. So you might cross the desert. You might beat the military. You're not going to get inside Area 51.
Yeah, we know there is at least one or two hackers out there that go, I'll be able to defeat the system when I get to it.
Yeah, I'm baffled. I know humans are stupid, but really? Area 51. And so, hell, let's go ahead and talk about it now.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind just going to Little Alien to have coffee and just watch them all. That'd be great. Take the popcorn. But
well, for being empathic, I'd agree with you wholeheartedly.
Right.
But the amount of dead bodies you're going to be dealing with is, it just baffles me that humans would even consider something that suicidal.
Oh, okay. And PBR's in the chat said someone says Wackenhut's not the security now. And that's probably one of the best moves they could have made if they actually wanted security. Because really, scare little kids. But why now? Is it because Bob Lazar's movie came out? Is it because Trump came out and said he doesn't believe in aliens and they might be out there, but I don't think they're there. I don't believe in them. Why did we pick 2019 to decide to go storm Area 51?
Nothing better to do? Or perhaps...
Hey,
I'm from Canada, and the reality is, I'm looking at it going, it may just be because of the amount of hoopla that's gone on with regards to the United States political mess. It may be that somebody got in their head that this would be the time to prove that this is the way things are going.
It's just all coming together, I guess. So, Brent, you've been sitting over there quietly.
Just listening in.
Does storming Area 51 sound like a good idea to you?
Well, if you want to commit suicide, yeah. It's being shot on sight, that kind of deter me. And you never know, they might have drones that just shoot you if the guards miss you. So,
what do you mean, Mike?
Well, if the lucky chaps got past the guards.
But it's public information. Don't they think Area 51's going to take and be prepared for it?
Yeah.
That's just insane.
Yeah, well,
that's another.
That's the other thing. They will. They're
they've got it all over the social media. They want to do it. That would be kind of like trying to invade somebody else's country and go, okay, we're going to give you our battle plan so that you can prepare yourself to make it a fair fight.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
They're
something here.
It's ridiculous.
So does anybody have any idea who the genius was that came up with the idea in the first place?
That's what I was just thinking.
No.
Who was? Yeah.
Maybe he's living under.
So William, didn't you say before the show that it was all supposed to be a prank?
Yeah, it seems like some random person may have just thought of this idea and got the ball rolling, and it's kind of snowballed since then. So, yeah, it seems prankish. I mean, when you break it down logically, I mean, would you really want a bunch of civilians trying to gain access to a secret military installation? It's basically suicide by choice. It's what it would be.
Right.
It may be as simple as that, but unfortunately, some people will take it as a serious, legitimate thing. I don't know. Maybe as simple as that. So, yeah, it's just a bizarre situation. Yeah.
And Chris just said that the one that thought it up probably won't even go.
Well, not if he's bright. Yeah, that's good. From that standpoint, it could be a case of, well, let's see how retarded people can be. I mean, I remember I was down at the park one day, and I was just staring at the ceiling. You know, it was a major event down up here. I was just staring at the sky. And next thing I knew, I had 50 people staring at the sky and pointing at things. Right. Somebody come up beside me. I wasn't pointing at anything. And somebody come up beside me and asked what I was looking at. And so I was just looking to see how long it was going to take a bunch of people to start staring at the sky.
No.
And they all started seeing flying saucers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I did see a few birds.
You know, Little Alien's going to make a lot of money that day. So they're probably they're probably getting ready for it. But you know, it's so you usually figure. So anytime you plan an event, you figure about 10% of the numbers are going to actually show up. So 10% of 500,000. What, 50,000?
Yeah.
Yep.
So even if you have 50,000 people show up,
well, yeah, sneaking across the field.
Oh, we're not working that day. We're not crossing all those spirits over. No. But I still have to. I don't know. I can't wrap my mind around it. Why now? Why not when Bob Lazar first came out in the early 90s?
That may have been because social media hadn't really taken hold yet.
Okay.
The story was out in the media, but now in the environment we have now with social media, I mean, anybody can just make up a story or make up some event, and all of a sudden everyone in the world knows about it. It's worldwide. It spreads around. So it made it a lot easier to spread this idea around of charging Area 51 and trying to get access to it.
You're right. No,
maybe that, yeah.
You're right, because I remember, I got into the UFO field in '94, and I was using, oh God, what was it? Cheetah Chat, and oh God, what was that little chat program that had had the little tiny flower?
I don't know. I don't know.
I am definitely the wrong person to ask.
Yeah, no, I can't remember it. But that was the very basic, almost like Skype, but it wasn't Skype.
Yeah.
It'll come to me. But
no.
Before we had,
you know, social media has its good points and bad points, obviously, and it's great for the paranormal and general community to get together. IRC, that's it. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, I forgot about that one.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Government.
That doesn't sound right either, though. But anyway. So going, you go from the New York Times article in 2017 in about the same time as when the To the Stars started. Do you think To the Stars was a good thing or a bad thing for the UFO community?
Well, I could be nice and say yes.
What do you think, William?
I've been critical of TTSA and the way they've slowly controlled. They've made an effort to control the narrative, and they've controlled the amount of information they're giving out. It's kind of a drip, drip, drip type deal. So I've been critical of that. But the other thing it did is it made the community even more polarized. People have always believed what they want to believe about cases or occupant cases or abductions or whatever the case may be, pro or con. And usually people argue about things and they get a little upset and emotional and then just go their separate ways. But now with the TTSA thing going on, any cursory examination of commentary on Facebook or Twitter, people are saying horrible things to each other. It's not about the scenario at all. Now they're just arguing. They're using foul language. They're character assassinating each other, as opposed to just having a conversation. So it's almost like political conversation. It's not about their it's not about their positions. They just want to be proven right. So that's kind of had a negative influence on it. It's made a problem that's already it's made a problem that was already there a little worse. But I think that's more about social media though than the TTSA deal. So that aspect has been kind of negative, but and then the positive, I don't know. They've been giving the information out so slowly that I'm just kind of in a wait and see mode and see what happens in the years to come, if anything happens.
Agreed, and I kind of take the stance. Forrest Moon is going to do what we do regardless. It's just kind of a wait and see who comes through the. I hate using the term swamp, but see who comes through the mire and see who makes it, see who doesn't, and just keep doing what we do, which is investigate UFOs, investigate Bigfoot, pass over spirits, handle haunting cases, do what we always do, and all the old timers, all the ones that pioneered this field, are passing. We oh God, who was the last one? But all the ones that pioneered the field are passing, and there's no one stepping up really to take their place, which is another reason for all the infighting.
That's kind of true. Yeah, that is true. Yeah. I guess you're referring to Stanton Friedman.
Yeah,
he's the last one I think that.
There you go.
No, you're right. Yeah, there's a void there, and no one's really taking the bull by its horns and trying to. It's hurt the field. The field is kind of meandering out without a real direction. Because you're right, no one's there to replace these researchers that have been around for decades. So, that may add to the problem of all this infighting. So, but you're right with your approach. I mean, a wait and see. Whatever happens with the TTSA, whatever happens with the Pentagon, we just kind of sit back and watch it go on and try to figure things out. But that shouldn't stop us from doing our own efforts or conducting our own investigations, whether that's in the field or not. Yeah, that's the way to do it. Just keep pushing forward. I mean, whatever happens, whatever information we find later on about this whole scenario comes to light, process it and figure things out. But it shouldn't stop you from doing what you're doing. No, and too many are just kind of, they've stopped what they're doing, and they're sitting on their hands, eagerly waiting to see what shoe will drop with this scenario, and that's not getting us anywhere. So I agree. Yeah, you got to keep pushing.
Yeah, it's funny. So we had our VIP roundtable at Paracon last year, And I think it was Chris that asked the question. Chris, you there?
Either.
Nope.
So
Yes, I am.
I think it was you that asked the question. And you had each of us take a specific field that we were closest to. Of course, I'm not the closest to Bigfoot. I'm more UFOs. But what was the problem in the field? And at that point in time, there wasn't the infighting you see today with UFOs. Back then, a year ago, it was Bigfoot. You had one side of Bigfoot that was all science. You had the other side of Bigfoot that was interdimensional or more spiritual. And they could not get along. There was nothing but anger, hatred, and fighting between the Bigfoot fields. You're seeing that in the UFO field today.
Very much so. Yeah.
Yeah,
Very much
unfortunately,
so.
it is. And people seem to have ignored the entirety of the. This is where disclosure is going to run into its problem. Because people are so interested in whether or not their view is right, they don't listen to the rest of it and take a look at it.
Well, and what's going to happen too is when disclosure happens, everything's been labeled fake news so often. It's just going to be fake news, and it's going to be washed away anyway.
Well, that would be the first thing, and then of course Hollywood has done a phenomenal job of clouding the events, and technology with its photographic abilities, right, adds to the problem. The sad reality of it is this: when we take a look at it, the first question that's got to be answered, and I've yet to come to find anybody that actually gives an answer, is what does anybody consider disclosure?
So, you hear different, well, this is disclosure is this, disclosure is that. You've got some, and we're coming close to the first break, but some think disclosure is the government's going to come out and say, yes, we have alien technology. Now we can get rid of fossil fuels. Now we can have free energy. That's not going to happen. The petrol companies make billions. They're not going to let free energy take over that. And,
well, there's subsidiary companies that are built on it that you cannot just up and replace.
Right. So is disclosure going to happen on that aspect? I don't see it, because big company, big corporations not going to allow it to. And who controls big company but President Trump? So when it really comes down to it, you're not going to see that level of disclosure happen.
No, and the reality is that people that think that full disclosure means everything that the U.S. government has on file is released is never going to happen. Well, I shouldn't say never. Civilization collapses, it'll be released.
Right.
That may be counterproductive, though.
I think the closest you're going to get to a soft disclosure is President Trump stepping up to his podium and saying, yes, there are UFOs. Yes, they are off-world. They're not from this planet. They're not a threat. Yada, yada, yada. And there you have it. All the other countries have already done that. The UK has already released their UFO files.
Problem, though. Very big problem with that.
What's that?
There's a staggering number of people that will look at it and go, he's just saying that so that people will leave the topic alone.
But I think by him saying that, he's going to open the green light, like we've talked before. He's going to turn on that green light. It's going to say, okay, it's okay to talk about this topic now.
That part I'll give you.
And to me, that's what's important. Because there's a lot of people out there that want to tell their story or want to ask for help. Or, at least say, did you see what I saw? And that's all they need. They need validation. And if we can give them that, then so be it.
Yeah, well, and I mean that's like the one ship that I saw here years ago. I pointed at the sky. I asked somebody if I could borrow his eyes. I pointed at the sky and I looked at him and went, "What's that?" And he goes, "Well, I see it." I says, for me, that's a real plus."
Mm-hmm.
And then went into the discussion of what it was.
All right. On that note, we'll jump into another topic and enjoy the break.
You are listening to S4 on Spreaker.com.
Come get spooked at the 4th Annual Forest Moon Paracon in Cedar-Woolley, Washington, Saturday, September 28th. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot. Speakers include Mike Morin and Jason Jordan, R. Keith Andrews, and Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and so much more. There will be workshops and a VIP roundtable. Get early bird tickets now at fmparacon.com.
We've had several days of 80-degree plus weather here in Concrete, Washington. My family's favorite way to keep cool in this heat is to stop by Java Zone 2 and grab a delicious iced latte for me and a blended mocha for my husband. Our son just loves their creamy milkshakes, and our daughter can't get enough of their ice cream. The best part is, Java Zone 2 is conveniently located just off Highway 20 beside Loggers Landing. And I'm proud to shop local for a business that has been a staple of the Concrete and Upriver community since it opened its doors in 2010. So if you're looking for a way to keep cool in this summer heat, come check out Java Zone 2. They're fast, friendly, and local.
Hello, my name's Cole Wegleitner with Statement of Sound DJ Productions. We do mixing, monitoring, recording, and editing for all your audio needs. For our local listeners in the Skagit area, we are taking bookings for your 2019 events and parties. We have a wide array of music from any genre. Please allow us to help you make these memories last forever. Contact us at 360-999-2830 or on Facebook at www.facebook.com/SOSDJPro.
Forest Moon Paranormal is a non-for-profit emergency response team that handles all aspects of the paranormal, helping you, your family, friends, and community since 2004. Whether you're having a problem with hauntings, spirits, Bigfoot, other types of cryptids, or UFO activity. Maybe you're just unsure of what's bothering or terrifying you. Or maybe you're just afraid of criticism and disbelief. FMP is here for you. We handle cases globally and locally from our headquarters in Skagit County, Washington. We never accept any form of payment for our services and are 100% confidential. You can find us on Facebook under Forest Moon Paranormal. You can private message us for assistance, or just come join in the discussion and become part of our growing FMP community.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacy, head of the Research Association, TESSA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you will be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
Join us on September 28th at the Cedar-Woolley Community Center for 2019 Forest Moon Paranormal Paracon. VIP All Access passes on sale now at fmparacon.com. Your pass includes all-day admission to see the speakers and workshops, the Ghost Walk, a special VIP workshop, a special round table with the speakers, a Paracon t-shirt, and an FMP Paracon swag bag. These tickets can be purchased from fmparacon.com. Get yours today.
Hey everyone, Cole here with S4 Paranormal Radio, the official voice of Forest Moon Paranormal. Looking for a way to get the word out there about your business, group, team, or product? Let us help you. A few clicks is all it takes to get started at s-4radio.com, or you can contact me at 360-999-2830. Welcome back to S4 with your host, Eric Cooper.
Welcome back to S4. Tonight we're talking all things UFO in 2019. You can also find the archives at our Spreaker site and on the S4 YouTube channel for all the shows you've missed. So anyway, we're back to the show, and now we have Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio with us. So Dave, we're going to back up the train here for a minute. And
yeah.
What do you think about TTSA?
Oh, I love them. Can I just give a quick I just want to give a quick heads up here. People who were listening to my show earlier, it got cut off 22 minutes into the network replay tonight, so I apologize. In my area, we had a major lightning storm with pitchfork lightning, and actually during our ghost tour, where we had one of the groups in the schoolhouse, and Eric, you've been in the schoolhouse,
yep.
So you know what building I'm talking about. It was actually struck by lightning tonight.
Oh wow! Did it catch fire? Or, all good?
No, it was a metal roof, and thankfully nothing caught fire. But so that's what knocked our replay off the air. So I apologize to our listeners in regards to that. But getting back to your question, and I apologize I'm late because I was just very much looking forward to doing this show with you guys. And but my ghost tour that I run every couple of weeks here to help raise money for the local museum, it ran a little bit late. Mm-hmm. But the good news is we were able to raise $550 for our museum tonight, which is really cool. And but back to your question with TTSA, I have a lot of reservations with this group. I have stated publicly that I am in not full support of what they are doing, but I come at it from a little bit of a different angle. And, you know, we have to give credit where credit is due. Okay? These gentlemen with the TTSA have brought the mainstream media to the quality of attention that is deserved for this subject. For so many years in the media, we had a lot of fun made of people who had experiences. You know, every story started with the Star Trek theme or the X-Files theme or something along those lines, and it was buried at the end of a newscast. And, you know, it always ended with the reporters snickering and laughing, making fun of the story. We don't get that anymore. We get this story of UFOs in the top section of the news, and there is no more joking around. And as much as I hate to admit it, we have to thank the TTSA for that. Now, that being said, as a journalist and somebody who has worked in newsrooms before, the disappointing part for me from my colleagues in the mainstream media is the fact that they have not asked any tough questions. There are a lot of tough questions that need to be asked of this group. And a lot of people on social media have come out and said, well, what needs to be asked? They've answered every question that they've been asked. Well, no, they haven't. They have dodged media requests, including my own. I recently got denied another media request by them, and I asked their media person point blank if they were boycotting my show because I'm not a supporter. and because of the fact that I would not write down my questions and present them to the TTSA beforehand. I will never do an interview like that. They are not the President of the United States. They are not the Prime Minister of Canada. I will never do that. But there are a bunch of red flags along the way that have really, really set me and other journalists off in regards to this. Now, what I have mentioned last night on my show, if people want to know who the real journalists are in ufology, they are the people outside of George Knapp who are not getting the interviews with TTSA.
Right.
Okay? All the fake ones, and they're easy to see, people who call themselves journalists who have no idea what the word means and what it is to understand being a journalist, they are the ones getting the stories. Now, I go back to when the TTSA was announced back on October 11th, 2017, when Tom DeLonge and his crew held a press conference in Seattle. How do you hold a press conference with no press?
You know, being in Seattle or being in Washington, 60 miles north of Seattle, I never even heard they were here.
Exactly. Nobody knew. Nobody knew. All right. Now, TTSA has done an admirable job at bringing it to the public. Like I'm reading Joe's Main's comment, is this a TTSA bashing show? No, it's not. I have never bashed the TTSA. People will say I have, all right? But I don't speak for me. I speak for the public, okay? And when the public has questions and concerns in regards to some of the actions of this group, we need to be able to have them answer questions. The good media out there should be able to ask questions as to why or why not certain things are happening. For instance, a question that I have is, how is the To the Stars Academy allowed to put their logo on a video they don't own?
Which one's
right?
that?
When you look at the Go Fast, the Gimbal, and the Tic Tac videos, anybody who's shown these videos, whether it is Fox News, CNN, ABC, NBC, YouTube, or whomever, okay, how are they allowed to use a DOD or Department of Defense video or a United States Navy video with the TTSA logo on it? I don't understand. This is an honest question. I'm not nitpicking. This is an honest question that I have because I don't understand American law, being Canadian. All right? And if I get a good answer for that they are legally allowed to, great. I'm fine with that. Right? But the public needs to know. The other thing the public needs to know is Tom DeLonge's story in regards to all of this, okay, on how he put this team together. Well, members of this team have worked together for the last 30 years under Robert Bigelow. Through BASS, the Bigelow Advanced Aerospace Space Systems Company, through NICAP, through NIDS, through other projects, they've all worked together except for DeLonge. Very few people have caught on that Lou Elizondo worked at Skinwalker Ranch. That's how he got involved with this crew. It wasn't Tom DeLonge handpicking this team. All right? What it is we have a lot of questions that have to be answered. And if I got my answers from them to the questions that my listeners have, and the questions that I have personally, I would have no problem supporting this team. All right? But anybody should be wary of a group that is filled with non-UFO people, but former spies, former intelligence officers. It's funny because, you watch all the old Vietnam movies and television shows, and you watch all of these shows. What's the first thing they tell you? Don't trust anybody from the CIA, correct?
I still don't.
Okay, but you look at the To the Stars Academy, and all of a sudden we've got a number of CIA people involved, and we're supposed to trust them on UFOs?
Yeah, no, I fully agree.
All right. The second thing is, this is a company, okay, that is a private company, which is fine. But if they're supposed to be working for the people, like they have talked, whether it's Lou Elizondo, Tom DeLonge, Chris Mellon, that they are doing this for the betterment of the people, why are they holding back?
Yeah.
Another question that I have. Why are you separating UFOs from extraterrestrials? Because for those people who have had experiences, such as myself and thousands of others, okay, we need to be able to wonder. We put UFOs with aliens and ET contact, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need to be able to answer that. And it's not nitpicking. It's not being anything. It's answering simple questions that the mainstream media has not asked. The reason why the mainstream, and this is what I'm going to be talking about at your conference, Cooper, and I'm going to be doing a lot more in depth with that. We are going to be talking about a lot of these questions that the mainstream media has not asked. The public needs to understand the mainstream media was caught with their pants down so far with this story because for decades they made fun of people who saw UFOs. They made fun of experiencers who had ET contact or ET abduction. They had made fun of this entire genre. And then all of a sudden, to the grace of the To the Stars Academy, they come out and they talk about this phenomena is real. The mainstream media, caught with their pants down, is like, oh, well, tell me more, tell me more. Well, we're going to give you the guy who runs the department. And we're going to give you the guy who was the commander of the FA-18 Hornet fleet that ran into these craft on the Nimitz. Okay, great. Where's the opposing point of view? Because journalism is supposed to be point and counterpoint. We have not had a counterpoint from the mainstream media yet. We have had a lot of points and everybody blowing sunshine up the To the Stars Academy's butts, but we have not had any counterpoints to some of the questions that need to be answered. For instance, John Greenwald from the Black Vault, through his FOIA request and talking to people at the Pentagon, okay, he has found out a couple of things. Number one, the Pentagon is denying that they released any videos to the Stars Academy, yet the To the Stars Academy says the videos came from the Pentagon. Number two, okay, the Pentagon has stated that Lou Elizondo did not run the ATIP program. Now, I disagree with that. I think they are covering it up. I think Lou Elizondo, from everybody I know who has talked to him, says he is a good guy. He is a good dude, but he is a spy. He is an agent of the government agency. And when you look at that, okay, the bigger question is, did Lou Elizondo have what they call an SC1 or an SC2 clearance? So a security clearance 1 or security clearance 2. If Elizondo had a security clearance 1, I have been told he did not run the program. If he had a security clearance too, he did run the program. Elizondo has yet to clarify that. All right? That's an important question with what we are dealing with, and I'm sure everybody would agree with that. Right? So there are all of these little questions, Eric, that have to be asked. Nobody is asking them because the mainstream media, whom the To the Stars Academy is really catering to, doesn't have enough knowledge of this subject to clarify it. A prime example of that was when the United States Navy released back in May or late April that they were now setting up a program for people to report these because they never had it before, and they were pretty much throwing any type of anomalous reports in the garbage because they had no place to store them. Really? Well, if that's the case, how did the 2004 videos come out if you were throwing them in the garbage? Please tell us, United States Navy. We really would like to know. Or when the Pentagon came out a few weeks later and stated, yeah, we're researching UFOs, how come nobody in the mainstream media said, tell us about Roswell, tell us about Kecksburg, tell us about San Augustine, tell us about the Marfa Lights, tell us about Japan Airlines 1680 in Alaska, tell us this stuff. Nobody asked that question. Don't you think it's a little important that if the Pentagon, which holds every piece of defense information that the United States has, comes out and says, yeah, we're researching UFOs, should that not be a frontline story? It wasn't. It got bypassed.
So let's, in 2019, we all know the Navy started publicly investigating their pilots' sightings. What's so big about 2019?
That's the $1 million question. Why now? Why now? I mean, William, you and I have talked about this numerous times.
Yes.
In regards to this on Spaced Out Radio and more so off the phone. Everett Thiemer and I have talked about this. Rich Giordano and I have talked about this. Lorian Fenton, Melinda Leslie, Grant Cameron, Michael W. Hall. We've all talked about this. Why now? What is the importance of 2019 that all of a sudden we're going into a UFO frenzy? It doesn't make sense. Now, my assumption, if I can give my assumption, okay, my assumption is either something happened, okay, something happened where there was an incident that may come out, or they were told that, hey, boys, we're coming down, and you better start talking to people about it, because when we come down, there's no stopping us. Now, that may sound a little woo, that may sound a little tinfoil, okay? I don't believe it's a false flag. I don't believe that for a second, to try and get defense funding into space. Or, like I believe it was Werner von Braun who talked about this false flag of alien invasion. I don't believe that for a second.
No,
what I do believe is I do believe something happened. And I could be 100% wrong, and I'm okay to admit that if I am. But usually 2 + 2 = 4. We can't find the 4. We know the equation is 2 + 2, but we can't find the answer being 4 right now. William, what do you think?
I agree. It may come down to a simple something transpired. And I agree with you, Dave. We might be 100% wrong, but logically, you look at a situation that's been the same for decades, and all of a sudden it changes within a short period of time. The way my mind works, I'm thinking, okay, what motivated this change? It may be as simple as an event. Something transpired to motivate them to change the way they're operating since the 30s. So I'm with you. It may be something simple as an event happened, whether it's an event that was directly involved us or something that was discovered, but something something momentous enough to change their method of operation transpired. And it may be that. Maybe we'll find out what that is in the years to come as information is given to us. Or we may not find out. I don't know. But my gut, I'm with you, Dave. My gut tells me it was an event. An event happened.
I agree.
And the thing is, I don't put a whole lot of credence on Trump coming out talking about UFOs because every president gets that. You know, they did it with Obama. They did it with the Bushes. Every president's been asked about UFOs. So the Trump interview wasn't... I think the timing was more a shock than anything, but his body language, like we've talked before, Dave, you know, his body language said everything.
Absolutely. But the big difference is, Eric, this time with President Trump, and it doesn't matter whether you love him or hate him. That's irrelevant.
Right.
Okay? This time with Trump, comparatively to Clinton, to Obama, to the Bushes, to Ronald Reagan, the big difference is this time there has been admittance. Admittance by the United States Navy, which should not be downplayed by any researcher. I don't care who you are.
Mm-hmm.
All right? There's been admittance from the Pentagon that they have been researching UFOs for a long time. When you have that admittance, and now you have a president who comes out and says, yeah, I heard about it. I hear that there's some of our best pilots who are seeing some weird stuff, but I don't really believe in it. He has to say that. His body language, and I watched that entire commentary with Tucker Carlson, and I wish Tucker wouldn't have buried it right at the end because I think there was more to it that got edited. Okay? But what people need to understand, when you have a one-on-one with the president, all right, you have to understand that your questions are pre-screened. You can't come up with a fresh question with the president. You have to follow the dialogue, all right, of approved questions. President Trump knew those questions were coming. And his body language, when they came up, to me, told an entirely different story than what his words were saying. And I talked to a number of people about this who agreed with me on it and said he looked very uncomfortable discussing that portion of the interview with Tucker Carlson on Fox News. Very uncomfortable. His answers were not clear. Now, a lot of people will say, well, damn it, Trump's answers are never clear at the best of times. What's the difference now? The difference now is we're talking about a very major subject. We're not talking about, Democrats versus Republicans. We're talking about something where he cannot come out and say, because if he would have come out and said, yes, there is real UFO phenomena, disclosure happened. There is way too much to this cover-up and way too many stories that still have to be blacked out before anything gets released. Because remember, in 2020, if this is at all true, and I'm not sure if it is or not, but I'm going to throw it out there. If Eisenhower's Greada Treaty was real, where he traded humans for technology with an alien species, the 65th anniversary of that is coming up in 2020, which is the alleged timeline of when the contract runs out. And if you look at the timeline, this Greada Treaty, if it does exist, all right, plays right into the hands as to why we are getting into this subject heavily in late 2018 and through 2019.
Yeah, that timeline would make sense. So what are we expecting in 2020? The race to come back?
Could be. Could very well be.
And I believe that was the Greys. So there's supposed to be 3 different visitations one was the Nordics. There was no agreement made. The other race that came down was the Greys, and that's who's abducting today. Well, them and a few other races. But it's the Greys that did the hybrid program. And I'm assuming that's probably the race that we're seeing the most of. I know our team is seeing the most of anyway. What's your thoughts, Keith?
Number one, there's no question the majority of the abductions are happening via the Greys.
Right.
The reason the Nordics didn't ever get around to any sort of contract is because they work hand in hand with the Greys.
The Nordics do?
The Nordics do, yeah.
Okay.
They've actually, and they do it for a very simple reason. Humans, when you abduct them, if they are not put out completely, if they come to it though, they get really panicky when you see a little short green guy or gray guy.
Right.
Nordics at least look human, and it's easier to calm people down if you've got somebody that looks human. Okay. But yeah, there's, from my standpoint, it's pretty black and white. That the big participants in the abductions, in the research side of it, from the off-world standpoint, is definitively the Greys.
I believe if I recall right too, part of the agreement the U.S. wanted was exchange for weapons as well, and they said, hell no, we're not dealing with weapons. We're not giving humans our kind of weapon technology.
Very much.
That was part of the reason there was no contract. And then here come the Greys. Now, did the Greys give weapons technology? I have no idea.
No.
Look what we've got today. Who knows?
The Greys turned over medical technology.
Okay.
They did not turn over the weapons technology. Had they turned over weapons technology that was working, there would not have been, like, we can take the civil wars like Korea and Vietnam. There would not have been a war that lasted any longer than about 3 days.
Now, Joe's got an interesting question. I want to hear your answer. Was Thor a Nordic?
Yes.
So I'd assume because Thor would be Odin as well.
Yes.
Okay.
They were actual Nordics. And this is why all the depictions make them look the way they do, because, well, they're pretty accurate.
Gotcha. Now, Dave.
Yes.
Are you going to storm Area 51?
Oh, hell no.
We already discussed this, but I figured I'd jump you into this topic. So there's up to 500,000 people now that have verified that they're going to show up and storm Area 51. Now, and we already picked this apart, but I'm going to pick it apart again real quick. Even if they were to somehow beat the military and get onto the actual base, how do they plan on getting into S4, the bunker,
They'll never get there.
The hangars?
Well, you got to realize that S4 is about, if you believe Bob Lazar, S4 is about 15 miles in a different direction. I think it's more inward into Nellis Air Force Range, so I believe it's west into the range, and you're not going to be able to get there. Okay? I mean, we have to look at this, guys. It's the popular thing to do, and I'm sure this was already said by you guys, especially William's goatee. But out of those 500,000 that have signed up, everybody's just jumping on board. There will be the 50 or 100 people who show up, and the minute they get a chain gang of camo dudes lined up with machine guns pointed at them, they're not going in. There will be arrests. There will be a police barricade. Nobody is getting in. And out of those 50 or 100, maybe only 10 or 12 are going to try and rush the line. They will be arrested effective immediately. But the fact that they think they're going to get 500,000 people to walk in there, and I mean, let's face it, they're not going to gun any American citizen down. I would highly I doubt that, because if it does happen, you have a civil war on your hands. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, hands down. I can see
you
most
have
of
a
them.
civil war, and that's where people like Joe's Maine are all of a sudden going to show up with their pointy sticks and start throwing them back, right? And that's what will happen. But there's going to be arrests. There's going to be the fools out there, with their faces covered, looking like they're part of Antifa, trying to run in there and storm it. They're not going to get far. Nobody's going to get killed. Nobody's going to happen. This event is going to be a bloody dud.
I think at best they're going to, like we discussed earlier, they're going to go to the little alien, they're going to have a beer, and they're going to laugh and forget about it and go home. I hope for their sake they do anyway. I hope little alien, stocks up and gets plenty of food and whatnot, because, usually even if you have 10% of the numbers of event attendees, you're looking at 50,000 people. Are that many going to show up? I doubt it, but you never know. We live in a crazy world anymore, so you just never know.
Yeah.
I just don't see it happening.
No, I don't either. Now, did you guys hear about Pascagoula, Mississippi?
Yes.
I should have known you'd heard about it already.
Yeah, the Higgs and Parker case. Yeah.
Yeah, they set up a historical marker, which I guess it shows you where we've gone today. They actually set up a marker for the abduction site at Pascagoula, Mississippi. I thought that was cool.
Now, I don't know about you, but the second you start getting government markers being put in place, or government monuments, or as they did in France, government laws, I'm looking at this personally as them saying there really is something actually going on.
Yeah, that's kind of what, it's such a famous case, though. I see it kind of like Mothman. Everybody knows about the Pascagoula, Mississippi abduction. West Point, not West Point, Point Pleasant, Virginia. They have the Mothman celebration. Roswell, they have their big celebration. Why not? Pascagoula, Mississippi is one of the famous landmark cases. Again, 2019. And then, of course, I'm sure you heard about David Oxenrider, Dave?
No, fill me in there.
So David Oxenrider, again, a couple months ago in Pennsylvania, was arrested for creating a bomb. He was going to blow up this bomb to warn the humans. Now, where we come up with building a bomb to warn humans, but he met the aliens in 2014, and they told him that if the humans aren't good, they're going to destroy us with an atomic laser.
Not a prayer.
So he thought it would be a good idea to build a bomb, and no, not a bong, Joe, a bomb, like boom. And he was going to put it behind in the hotel he lived in. And he told his manager of the hotel that he built a bomb because the aliens are going to destroy us if we're not good. So yeah, he's now been arrested and imprisoned for building a weapon of mass destruction. But I think he belongs in a psychiatric ward instead of a prison. But that's just me. And if we all get destroyed by an atomic laser, then I guess he was right. But That case, I'm not surprised because the psychiatric cases are coming out of the woodwork, whether it's paranormal or abduction related or UFO related or whatnot. But why in 2019? Now, if you look at the Alien Races book and the whole 2017 to 2022 window, there's supposed to be something happening between alien race wars. What have you heard about that, Keith?
Well, there's 3 that I know of, and none of them involve wiping out the planet.
No. So, according to the 2017 to 2022 window, we're just in a crossfire. There's nobody attacking the planet.
No.
There's nobody threatening the humans. It's simply a matter of a war between other races.
Well, the Teklex have a civil, and they're the 4.5, 5.5 foot reptilians. They have a civil war going on. Them and the Shazazian, which is another reptilian race that are 7.5 to 8.5 feet tall, have a war going on between them. And then of course there are new races that are moving into the area that the consortium is just not interested in letting them have a controlling impact.
Right.
But nobody's trying to take the planet.
No, this was a simple, like you said, I would agree, more like a civil war. It was maybe not civil war, because civil war is usually on a home planet. But
no, it means civil war is simply a fight amongst one race, from one civilization to itself.
So, jumping topics here. And since I've got the ones in the know, what's Robert Bigelow doing during all this? Is he part of TTSA or is he doing Robert Bigelow's thing?
Dave? We haven't heard his people that worked for him have been active with TTSA, but Bigelow himself has been, at least to my eyes, relatively quiet. He did a 60 Minutes interview, I don't know, what is that, 3 years ago, something like that.
May of 2017.
So that transpired. But beyond that, he seems, I guess compared to his cronies with TTSA, he seems a little more in the background. That's my take on it. So I don't know what Dave's thoughts are on that, though.
Well, I tend to think that Mr. Bigelow is funding the To the Stars Academy. I don't think his name has been brought up, although if it's funny because I believe in episode 6 of Unidentified, Robert Bigelow's name did come up during the show.
Yeah, it did.
And that was the first time, gentlemen, that anything regarding Robert Bigelow and To the Stars Academy had been mentioned publicly outside of any type of report. Any type of report.
Correct.
And I have been tipped off by people who are much more in the know than I am, okay, that Bigelow is the money man behind this, and that Bigelow does have his fingers in the crackers. I mean, why wouldn't he? This is his team. Hal Puthoff and Jim Semivan have been very close to Bigelow over the years. So has Chris Mellon. So has a number of others. And you just don't all of a sudden part from your own team who has worked for Bass, who have worked for NIDS, who have worked at Skinwalker Ranch. This is why I say, gentlemen, when Tom DeLonge tries to tell people that he set up this team, that he handpicked this team, it is so full of crap because these are all Bigelow's boys. Of course Bigelow has a say. Bigelow does everything. And if we're wondering, and this is where it gets interesting, if you want to put the tinfoil
still
I'm
here,
just
Dave?
happy at you. And what? I am still here.
You're breaking
bear
up.
with me.
Okay.
Bear with me, my friend. How am I now?
There you
Am
go.
I any better now?
Yeah.
Is it any better now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. So what I was saying before I started crackling is when Bigelow gets involved with something, he loves to stay on the outside lines. And if you put your tinfoil hat on for a second and you think about it, okay, this group is getting money somewhere. All right? Those gentlemen who have been seen in public are wearing some pretty expensive clothing that you just don't get off a $50,000 or $60,000 a year, if that, salary. Okay, from the suits they wear to even their designer jeans and T-shirts. All right, that money is coming from somewhere. The only way, okay, and if you go back in time to 2007, when the original money for the ATIP program came out, the $22 million, the only way they were able to keep that money from the FOIA requests was through Bigelow. So if the TTSA is, say, hypothetically, a government-run agency, all right, they are funding it through Bigelow because Bigelow doesn't have to answer to any FOIA request because he is a private entity.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
All right. And the big fact, and it's funny because there are very few people, and this is where I give a shot at all these fake journalists or fake people who call themselves journalists in this field, because there are very few people who are actually talking about the fact that Bigelow was named on episode 6 of Unidentified.
Yeah, and I haven't gotten to even see that show yet. I've been looking for it.
Okay. All you need to hear is Bigelow. That's all you need to hear.
Right.
The minute his name comes out, you know he's involved. You know he's involved. One way or another, he is involved. And when you have that type of power, Bigelow doesn't like the publicity. He never has. Okay? And for anybody who is questioning that, just follow the timelines. Follow the timelines. That's all anybody has to do is follow the timelines. It's all right there. It doesn't matter how good or how bad or how much you love the group or hate the group, okay? They are controlling a narrative, and we don't know what that narrative is. That's what's scary.
And I lost my train of thought.
Agreed.
All right, so if Bigelow is funneling money into TTSA, I guess when I first looked at TTSA back in 2017 when they first came out, the first thing that popped up was we need money. You've got all these government agents from different agencies within the government that are pulled into your organization. They come with money. If Bigelow is funneling all his money into it, why are they asking for millions of dollars? I understand operational cost. I understand to keep the program going. But how many millions did they make off the general public?
They made less than $3 million. So, gentlemen,
I thought it was
more
than that.
Okay, let's look at this mathematically here for a second. Okay, if you are paying these guys, let's say $100,000 a year, we know through their financials that Tom DeLonge got $700,000 of the first $1 million. Okay, so if you're paying the rest of the crew $100,000 a year, because when you have an all-star lineup like they do, they don't come cheap. Okay, Lou Elizondo is not leaving his job in the government for $50K, $60K.
Right.
Okay, these other guys. Okay, what's the guy's name who left Lockheed Martin? The Skunk Works guy. I'm forgetting his name right now. Okay, he's not leaving his job for 50, 60K or for free or 40K. Okay, he has a cushy job with Lockheed Martin where he's making probably $250,000 plus a year. I don't know, but I'm going to assume. Okay?
Yeah.
When you're that high up in a company, the size of Lockheed, okay, you're not paying into a 401k because you don't need it.
Right.
All right? These guys are making money. And if you think Tom DeLonge, I think they made $2.5 million off the initial share sales. If Tom DeLonge makes $700,000 of the first million, okay, and let's say that number is $2.5 million, that leaves you with $1,800,000. Well, we're into year 2 of this, and if you're paying these guys, say, $100,000 each, that money's almost ran out. That means there is no money for a television show. That means there is no money to build a spaceship. That means there is no money for media and marketing. Mm-hmm. All right? There is no money for that because that television show, TTSA produced it, and they presented it on 6 episodes. To make a 6-episode series, okay, with the drone footage, with the military footage, with traveling to Italy, with traveling to Mexico, with traveling across the United States. We're not talking about a cheap bill here, guys. We're talking a couple $100,000 there. Okay? Who is funding it? Is it Bigelow? Is it the government through Bigelow? Is it Ray Pandolfi or Ron Pandolfi or whatever his name is? Right. Who is the source? Because it sure isn't the crowdfunding. Is it DeLonge himself? We know DeLonge has made $50 million off of Blink 182 and other investments. Okay, but why would DeLonge put into that group if he just spent or just collected $700,000 out of the first million?
So where do we think? And yeah, we'll wrap up this the second hour here on where do you think TTSA is going to take us? Do you think TTSA is part of disclosure?
I think they're part of a confirmation, and I think the more and more people start to open up their eyes to see that this group has not been as upfront as they claim to be on a lot of these subjects, I think they're going to start losing a lot of steam and momentum, and they're either going to have to come up with a good triple. I'm not going to say a home run, but I'll say a good triple, or they're going to have a lot more trouble coming in the future.
So let's back up real quick. So we already discussed what we thought disclosure is going to look like. What do you see disclosure looking like, Dave?
Oh, what do I see? Good question. Good question. I think it still has to come from the White House. No matter what, it has to come from the White House. I mean, it is something that the President of the United States has to go into the hallways and give a speech without any press there, just a camera that is put in front of that is broadcast on all the major networks, and he holds a press conference and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, or my fellow Americans, for many, many years we have wondered and looked up in the stars to see if we are alone. I am here to confirm that we are not alone, that we have made contact with an extraterrestrial presence." I think that's how it has to be.
And I can get completely on board with that because you got all these arguments, and we're going to talk about the UFO community in general here in the third hour. But you've got all these arguments and infighting over what disclosure looks like, and you got the ones that are jumping out saying, well, they've got to disclose free energy and alien technology energy, and I don't see
crap.
it. I don't
That's
see it.
crap.
Yeah, I don't see that ever happening. And like I said earlier in the show, that's not going to happen because you're not going to have the oil companies giving up their oil. And that's what's going to happen. That's what they're going to try to push for if they say we have alien technology that gives free energy. And that's not going to happen. What I see disclosure is exactly like you said. The president's got to come out and say, yes, there are UFOs. They are off-world. They're alien. We've been in contact with them for 60, 70 years. And they're here. Now, that's going to do two things. It's going to terrify some because it's going to shake the very essence of their soul. And the other ones is going to give them the green light to come out and talk about it. And talk about their experience. I think
but to contradict that, sorry for cutting you off there.
No, go ahead.
But to contradict that for a second, though, okay, here's the thing that it's not as easy as just coming out and saying we have met with aliens.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what I see it as being is we have to figure out how we can keep all of our secrets before we introduce the aliens.
Right.
There's a big difference there. Big difference. Like they want to come out and say, hey, America, and hey, world, we're just as shocked as you are that this is happening. But, oh my goodness, look what's happened.
But
they're not going to sit there and tell you about the crash retrievals. They don't want to tell you about the technology that has been gained. They don't want to tell you about the contact that has possibly happened, which I do believe personally that it has happened. They don't want to talk to you about that because this is a military-industrial complex. What they will tell you is when they figure it out, it's going to be, oh my goodness, look, here's Ned the alien. Here's Carl and his buddies. That's the way they're going to do it. They're going to act all shocked and surprised. You can't do that if you're hiding secrets like Roswell. And a prime example of that, gentlemen, is when you hear people talking about Roswell, and we all know what happened in 1947, how many people talk about the second crash that happened that day at San Augustine?
Well, actually, also didn't one of them wasn't the one in Russia the part of the same crash too?
Could have been.
Keith?
As far as I understand, the answer is yes. There was also one that went off the coast of Nova Scotia at the same time.
No, Nova Scotia was 1967.
I can quite readily stand corrected on that. Like I've told people multiple times, I'm not what we would call a researcher.
But you are handsome.
I am a hobby.
Are you still there, Dave?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I know there was there were two that hit. I've heard three. There was the one that went across Texas into Mexico, and I believe that one struck the one in Roswell. But I've heard other stories too about a third one that went into Russia. Unless the one in Russia might be completely different.
I believe that if you look back over the record, that what you'll find is that it was all part of the same maneuver.
And was that intentional or was that an accident?
Well, yeah. Well, maneuver ending in accident, but the reality is the speed they move, getting across the world in a heartbeat actually isn't that hard.
Well, I only say accident or intentional because there are some theories that are floating around out there that it was a forced disclosure back in the 40s.
Not exactly forced, in all fairness. Only forced in as much as they ended up in the atmosphere.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, there are 3 wars going on up there right now, which is why I tell people the biggest difference between off-worlders and humans is the price of their toys. And frankly, the effectiveness of them.
Right.
Yeah, but technologies and what have you are very similar in a lot of ways.
Depending on race, I'm sure.
Well, certainly. Some are more aggressive than others.
All right, and on that, we are going to go ahead and go to our last break. So when we come back, I want to talk about the UFO field and what all this in 2019 means for us that are in this field.
You are listening to S4 on Spreaker.com.
Come get spooked at the 4th Annual Forest Moon Paracon in Cedar-Woolley, Washington, Saturday, September 28th. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot. Speakers include Mike Morin and Jason Jordan, R. Keith Andrews, and Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and so much more. There will be workshops and a VIP roundtable. Get early bird tickets now at fmparacon.com.
We've had several days of 80-degree plus weather here in Concrete, Washington. My family's favorite way to keep cool in this heat is to stop by Java Zone 2 and grab a delicious iced latte for me and a blended mocha for my husband. Our son just loves their creamy milkshakes, and our daughter can't get enough of their ice cream. The best part is, Java Zone 2 is conveniently located just off Highway 20 beside Loggers Landing. And I'm proud to shop local for a business that has been a staple of the Concrete and Upriver community since it opened its doors in 2010. So if you're looking for a way to keep cool in this summer heat, come check out Java Zone 2. They're fast, friendly, and local.
Hello, my name's Cole Wegleitner with Statement of Sound DJ Productions. We do mixing, monitoring, recording, and editing for all your audio needs. For our local listeners in the Skagit area, we are taking bookings for your 2019 events and parties. We have a wide array of music from any genre. Please allow us to help you make these memories last forever. Contact us at 360-999-2830 or on Facebook at www.facebook.com/SOSDJPro.
Forest Moon Paranormal is a non-for-profit emergency response team that handles all aspects of the paranormal, helping you, your family, friends, and community since 2004. Whether you're having a problem with hauntings, spirits, Bigfoot, other types of cryptids, or UFO activity. Maybe you're just unsure of what's bothering or terrifying you. Or maybe you're just afraid of criticism and disbelief. FMP is here for you. We handle cases globally and locally from our headquarters in Skagit County, Washington. We never accept any form of payment for our services and are 100% confidential. You can find us on Facebook under Forest Moon Paranormal. You can private message us for assistance, or just come join in the discussion and become part of our growing FMP community.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacy, head of the Research Association, TESSA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
Join us on September 28th at the Cedar-Woolley Community Center for 2019 Forest Moon Paranormal Paracon. VIP All Access passes on sale now at fmparacon.com. Your pass includes all-day admission to see the speakers and workshops, the Ghost Walk, a special VIP workshop, a special round table with the speakers, a Paracon t-shirt, and an FMP Paracon swag bag. These tickets can be purchased from fmparacon.com. Get yours today.
Hey everyone, Cole here with S4 Paranormal Radio, the official voice of Forest Moon Paranormal. Looking for a way to get the word out there about your business, group, team, or product? Let us help you. A few clicks is all it takes to get started at s-4radio.com, or you can contact me at 360-999-2830.
Welcome back to S4 with your host, Eric Cooper.
Welcome back to S4. Tonight we're talking all things UFO in 2019. And actually we're looking at the timeline from 2017 to now and why is it all increasing now. So you can also find the archives at our Spreaker site and on the S4 YouTube channel for all the shows you've missed. Anyway, back to the show. So, where were we? Let's see here. Here's what I find interesting. So this year, I know, I just saw the Bob Lazar movie for the first time, 3-4 days ago. Have you seen it yet? I'm sure you've seen it, Dave.
Sorry, you cut out on me, Eric. I apologize.
Have you seen the Bob Lazar movie?
I have not yet, but I do plan on watching it.
I liked it. It actually showed him more personal. Have you seen it, Will?
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it twice. Yeah.
So, tell me your thoughts. I followed Bob Lazar since since '94 when I first started getting into the UFO field.
Yeah.
And I believed him then. The fact that he brought up Element 115, for example, before it just came out a few years ago. The fact that his number was in the phone book, they never got scrubbed out. There's a lot of inconsistencies there that they didn't get to that he claimed, and well, there it was. What's your thoughts?
I don't believe his story. There's enough red flags for me to really doubt the story. I just need a little more. I need a little more meat on the bones of the story to take his story at face value. There's some things that have held up over time, but despite, I guess in opposition of some other people in the UFO community, or perhaps the entire UFO community, I don't ignore red flags. Mm-hmm. When there's a red flag out there and something doesn't add up, then I think it casts a shadow on the rest of the scenario or the rest of the testimony per se. So I recall it was a separate broadcast, but on YouTube there's a snippet of a debate between Jeremy Corbell and Stan Friedman, and they're debating the Bob Lazar story. Mm-hmm. And in typical fashion, it was a display of the UFO community, the way it operates now, or seems to. Stan Friedman debated Corbell, just stating the facts about the issues of the red flags, his educational background, lack of documentation, legitimate questions and legitimate points that Mr. Friedman made. Right. And Mr. Corbell didn't attack the data, he attacked the messenger. He attacked Friedman as opposed to answering the questions. So, I don't believe the story. At this point, I don't believe the story, and which has been my position since the word go. Right. And when the story first broke in the very, very late 80s, early 90s, I didn't have a position on it. I waited to see if anything else would come out, and as the story developed over the years, and and given enough time to really examine what was being said or not being said, or not being claimed, the things that didn't come to light, I've just come to the conclusion that I don't take his story at face value. So, but I'm very comfortable saying I could be wrong.
Right.
So, yeah, that's just my take on it.
Well, and it's one of those things, and it's sad that people can't discuss things without being attacked or being, getting defensive. Discuss it.
No,
that's all you got to do.
No, you're exactly right. Yeah,
you see it in politics, you see it in religion. It's just human nature. But I have my doubts, and I still believe him because I know how the government is. I know how the government can wipe you if they want. The government can destroy you if they want. And we've seen it in the UFO field many times with many different people. So there's just things with him that I can see happening. Chris and Brent, have you guys seen the movie yet? Chris and Brent.
Sorry, I had to find the mute button again.
Uh-huh.
No. No.
I'll go on Netflix tonight or tomorrow and watch the Bob Lazar movie. Keith, have you seen the Bob Lazar movie yet?
Absolutely not.
I figured. You've been busy. Yeah. Okay.
A couple of pretty major interrupting factors happened.
Oh, yeah. So, the other thing we've got is the Skinwalker Ranch movie. And I think that's coming out this year, is it not?
I don't know. Dave, do you know the date of release?
I don't know the date of release, but I think it's going to be very interesting to see when it comes out.
Yeah. That's well said, yeah. Regardless of the position people take, it'll at least be interesting to examine it. Yeah.
Well, and so, I look at all these as puzzle pieces. And so the Bob Lazar movie came out in 2018. Then you got Blue Book that came out, spring of this year. You've got the Skinwalker Ranch movie coming up. You've got all these, what I see is, all puzzle pieces along with Trump's interview, along with increased UFOs. It's all, I don't know, all kind of like catalysts that are coming up to something that's going to happen. Thoughts?
Well,
possibly. Or they could be just television programs.
Oh, they could be.
They could be just it could be just programming developed and produced to make a profit. We, as a community, we may be. You might be right. It might be pieces leading toward something that transpired, or we as a community may be reading into something that may not be there. I mean, certainly the UFO community has been its own worst enemy at times, putting credence into scenarios or cases or testimony that have turned out to be false, or there's turned out to be nothing there. So at this point, we don't know.
And that's the paranormal community as a whole. And like I said earlier in the show, you saw it definitely with the Bigfoot field, and now it's getting that way with the UFO field. And it's sad. So, what do you think, Dave? Do you think something's coming up?
Oh, goodness. I don't think there's anything big coming up with anything. I think it's going to be a lot of rehashed information again, because that seems to be the fun part. What we got to realize, Eric, whether it's Skinwalker, whether it's Lazar, whether it's unidentified or what's happened, they are not doing this, whether it's Jeremy Corbell or History Channel or TTSA. They're not doing this for ufology. They're doing this for the mainstream to start bringing these topics into a documentary type understanding for people who are not used to this subject, are used to making fun with this subject. And that's what they're making it for, is to try and create more believers in the phenomena. They don't give a care about you, Eric, me, William, R. Keith Andrews, anybody listening to this show, because we already know phenomena is happening.
Right.
We already know that there are ghosts. We already know there's Bigfoot. We already know there's Dogman. We already know there's UFOs and aliens and ET abductions and fairies and sprites and gnomes and red hats. We know all of this stuff. Okay? They are not doing it to appease us. They don't give a care about any of us. They care about educating the mainstream public to believe their narrative that this stuff is real.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we need to realize. So we can sit here and harp and whine and cry and shout from the top of the mountains with all the oxygen out of our lungs. And they're only going to come back and say 3 words: I don't care. Like Bob Lazar, I believe Bob Lazar. William and I have debated this on Spaced Out Radio a couple of times, and we dropped the gloves on it, and I think I won. But nonetheless, that's neither here nor there. But I believe the Bob Lazar story. I believe he worked there. But you know what? There is some great people who have uncovered some evidence, whether it's Stanton Friedman, whether it's Chris George Zuger, whether it's Richard Dolan, whether it's William Pullen, who is, I think, one of the best in the field right now. He just doesn't know it. Okay? I think there is a lot of high-quality information to the contrary right now as to whether or not Lazar is believable. And I personally believe that he was there. I do believe his story because from a journalism background, okay, George Knapp, okay, love him or hate him, at that point in his journalism career, he would not put his career on the line for Bob Lazar. Would not ever. He had only been with KLAS for 8 years at that point, and he took a major chance, and he's never retracted on the story, and neither is KLAS. And if you know how the media works, if that story proved to be fake in the last 30 years, they would have retracted it. They never have.
Right. And I fully agree. I fully agree with that. And so I can't see the chat room. The chat room is frozen up on my end. So if I'm not,
and going and
so if
I'm sorry, and adding on to what Dave was commenting on, the fact that Dave and I have had a cordial discussion about the Bob Lazar story is something that doesn't really generally happen in the UFO field.
Right.
We're able to agree to disagree and just walk away and just present our own facts, and our professional positions may not line up, but at the end of the day, we just agree to disagree. That's it. Unfortunately, in the majority of the field, cordial discussions don't take place. They end up going into name-calling and character assassination. People just can't discuss the data and discuss facts that are legitimate, discuss facts that are not legitimate. They can't do that. They get emotional, they get subjective, and it just goes from there. And that's to the detriment of the field, because we need to all be looking at the data. We also need to be looking at what's valid and what isn't, and be able to discern between the two instead of trying to confirm our own belief structure or trying to win an argument. We're not here to win an argument. We're here to find out what's legitimate and find out what isn't and move forward instead of continually engaging in arguments that don't get us anywhere. And I guess that's just a little tangent, but you were mentioning, we would discuss the community at large. That's kind of what happens. So when I interact with Chris George Zuger, when I interact with with Dave or with Kevin Randall in Roswell, I may not always agree with their positions, but we're all able to discuss things cordially and then move forward, which is a huge deal in this field. We all need to be able to do that, and we need to all be comfortable with being wrong and being able to admit it, because none of us have all the answers, despite what any one of us might think. None of us have, and I've always thought none of us have any of the answers. I mean, as a species, we're not smart enough. I've always believed that. We just, as a species, on some level, we don't know the questions we need to ask yet. We'll get there perhaps one day, but we don't at this point. So, but as a community, we all need to grow and get to that point where we're asking legitimately objective questions about every scenario that comes across the table. We're not doing that yet. Like Dave mentioned before, the simple question, why, is not asked. Legitimate questions that should be answered are not being asked for whatever reason. And that's a horrible situation. The way you gain knowledge, the way you gain perspective on anything is by asking questions, by making legitimate inquiries. And for some reason, that's not happening nowadays. And that's a horrible situation. And I'm done.
And you know what? William hits a very, very important point on the point there, guys. You know, we have agreed to disagree on the Bob Lazar scenario, and that's perfectly fine. Mm-hmm. But there's never been any name calling. There's never been any, I'm right, you're wrong, and my opinion is fully correct. There's never been any of that. I have heard his facts. He has heard my facts, and we both weighed those decisions extremely respectfully. And imagine how much more we would solve if people in the field of ufology got their heads out of their butts and started talking cordially with each other. They weren't lying about information. They weren't lying about their credentials. They weren't making up self-titles. You know, we would be so much further ahead. I mean, a guy you got to look at right now, a guy who I absolutely respect, Richard Dolan. Okay, a year and a bit ago, he was Mr. Anti-TTSA. He was telling everybody the exact same thing Spaced Out Radio was telling our listeners, which was, hold off. Let's sit back and watch this play out to see where it goes. But if you look at Dolan now, as TTSA has hooked their truck up to the MUFON trailer, Dolan has now hooked up his trailer to MUFON.
Sure has.
All right. And he's going on all these MUFON cruises and doing everything for MUFON. Dolan has actually started being very, very cordial to TTSA. Now, my thought on it, because he's never really explained it, or at least I've never seen him explain it, my thought on it is, okay, Richard, are you doing this because you've seen some really cool things out of them and you've talked to them and you've starting to change your mind because of that? Or are you starting to change your mind because you see, now that Stanton Friedman's gone, that number one position in ufology opened up now, and you could be the guy. However, the TTSA is starting to take your seat, and you want to make sure that your work still remains relevant so you have a career and don't have to go back into the classroom teaching university studies.
But here's the problem with that, because I don't think the TTSA is ever going to take over the lead seat of ufology. Honestly, don't. They, you know, like we said earlier in the show, they feed their information too slow. They're great, like you said before, for the new people that know nothing about it. But you know, and so we were talking about this before you came on to the show, Dave. There's so many, you know, Stanton Friedman was one of the historians, or the grandfather of the UFO field. And we have more and more of our old-timers that are dying off. Who's going to step up to take that place? Is it going to be Richard Dolan? Now, if he's joining up with TTSA, I think that would be a wrong move. Maybe, maybe not. I think that's part of the problem with the UFO field we've got today, because now everyone's just all over the place and doing their own thing, and that's fine, other than the fact that they're attacking each other.
Yeah. It's interesting. Some of the larger names in the history of the UFO field, Alan Hynek, James E. McDonald, Stanton Friedman, Kevin Randall, all these individuals have stayed away from being aligned with a civilian investigative group. Friedman and Randall never joined MUFON. Alan Hynek never joined APRO or NICAP. They all seem to stay away from giving the perception that they were aligned with any one group, because it gives the impression, whether that's legitimate or not, that they are aligned with the belief or the operating procedures of that group.
Right.
So they've all kind of stayed free agents on some level. So what Dolan's doing, or has done, or seemingly has done, he's hooking up his ship to TTSA and MUFON, which is counter what large. If we assign him the title of a larger name in the UFO field, along the lines of a Friedman or Randall or a Hynek, it's counter to what they did. He's hooked himself up to a civilian investigative group. He's hooked himself up to a group which is active, as opposed to just staying cautious and apart from the group, apart from any groups, really.
Right.
So that's an interesting development. That's counter to what usually happens. So,
and not trying to jump back into the TTSA bashing here, but that was one of the biggest complaints when they first started up. I remember you, Dave, talking about it. Is they were staying their own entity, and they weren't talking to any of the actual UFO researchers that have been in the field for 20, 30, 40 years.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's exactly it. But here's the other thing, guys, that we also need to understand is when you look at the history of ufology and the people who have been involved, there's always been brilliant people involved with this. Mm-hmm. They wanted to stay independent because they didn't want their sources tainted. They weren't in it for the media. They weren't in it for the popularity. They were there to bring respect for the field.
Yes.
Right? I mean, you brought up some very impressive names, William, with Hynek and Friedman and Randall and many, many others.
Mm-hmm.
And today's ufology, because there is money to be made, and I don't fault anybody for trying to make a buck off of this. I really don't. I realize there's a lot of people who hate that, but why is the field of ufology or paranormal the only field out there that you can love, but you're not allowed to make a dime off of it? Because I think that's BS. I totally think that's BS. But these guys and women were big names who were pushing the right buttons. They had sources in government. They had no agenda, though. And that's the big difference compared to what we're seeing today, is whether it's Stephen Greer, whether it's To the Stars Academy, there is always seeming to be an agenda. Good aliens on one side, bad aliens on the other.
Right.
And that's the danger of it. I don't know if I answered your question properly, but that's kind of where we're going.
So when you get to the alien side, Keith, you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here.
So, we have Greer on the one side saying all aliens are good, and then you got DeLong saying all aliens are bad. Where are the aliens in all this?
About the same place the human race is. In every race, there are good ones and bad ones.
Right.
Or, there are your maniacally, your fanaticals. You have the complacent ones that sit back and just watch the world go by. And you've got the rebellious kids just like you do with adults. Just as you do with humans. The only real functional difference between off-worlders and humans is the price and effectiveness of the toys.
And with that, I agree. So, where do we see the UFO field in the next year? If things don't improve, if things don't, if disclosure doesn't happen, which I don't think it's going to anyway, it's just my opinion. Where do we think the UFO field's going to be? Is it going to keep on floundering and fighting and until the big guy comes up on top, or what do you think?
Ultimately, yeah, but quite frankly, mankind's got a bigger problem than that. But people will keep bantering back and forth. They will keep chalking it all up to deception and non-disclosure. They'll keep asking for disclosure until individuals actually have a personally undeniable experience. You see, the neat thing with Hollywood is they come out with the movies, and yeah, most of them are designed to make money, but what people forget is many of the aliens that get shown on these movies are actually very accurate.
Right. And with that, I agree. I mean, I always see, every time you say that, I think of Predator right off the top.
Yeah, that's real Predator.
So
like that, you don't want to go head to head.
No. So, Dave, where do you see the UFO field in the next year?
Same place, different channel. I really don't see things changing. I'll tell you who I feel sorry for, and I think we have to give a little bit of a bigger voice to. And I brought this up on Spaced Out Radio a few times now, but I really, really believe that through all of this disclosure talk, the people who have been affected the most are the experiencers.
Right.
They have been silenced. They have been told that we're not allowed to talk about UFOs and aliens in the same sentences anymore. Their opinion has been cast aside quicker than a rotten meal from a restaurant. And I think it's very sad that these are the people who are needing the help most, and yet we're not allowed to discuss things with them. We're not allowed to bring up their points because we've been told UFOs doesn't necessarily mean aliens anymore.
Well, in all fairness, it never was relegated to only aliens.
Yeah, you had too many that, there for a minute, it was, anytime you said UFO, it was an off-world craft.
And that I agree with. Problem was, it was mistaken right then.
Right. And so don't you think with the Navy coming out and investigating that it's giving the green light again?
In my opinion, essentially, yes. My concern, however, is that the UFO community itself hasn't picked up the banner properly. From the standpoint of you get too many people that I've witnessed personally that claim to be in the field, basically shoving aside actual experiencers' experiences and chalking them up to, make-believe or what have you, inside its own field. That, to me, is the bigger problem.
Okay. So, Will.
Yes, sir.
Where do you see the UFO field in the next year?
Same thing next year. I mean, I think the interactions between individuals is going to kind of stay the same. I don't see anything changing. I don't think disclosure is coming. We've been here several times over the past few decades, and it's never transpired. So, professionally, that's my position. Personally, I wish it would change. I wish disclosure would happen, but I just don't think it will. But I don't think anything will change. I mean, social media and the ability to interact with people across oceans instantaneously won't change. And the dynamic of how people interact with each other and attack each other, that's not going to change, because you're able to attack somebody from behind a keyboard instead of actually discussing things cordially face to face. So that's not going to change. That will never go away. So, and the way the community, the field is floundering because there's not a leader out there, that's going to continue too. You don't have one person that's respected by both sides, by all sides, whether you're talking about believers, skeptics, or debunkers, and to whatever degree each of those people hold their positions. At least in the past, the Hyneks and the Friedmans and the Randalls weren't always agreed with, but they were respected because they got to their positions the correct way through examination of the data. They were objective. They had quality sources of information they wouldn't divulge. These were people without an agenda. They were just trying to find what was legitimate and cast things aside that weren't legitimate. They were there to find the facts, period.
Right.
Not to confirm anyone's belief structure, but just the facts. Now with those voids, I mean, Hynek and Friedman are gone. Randall is pretty much in semi-retirement. There's no one to take that mantle. There's no one that everybody respects in the field that is a major name that can kind of tamp down on the horrid behavior. They can kind of quiet the field and say, okay, let's just all get along and keep pushing forward. There's no one there. And I don't see anyone on the horizon to take that mantle. So we may end up in the same place next year and the years after that. So,
where is Linda Moulton Howe in all this? Linda Moulton Howe is one I always respected and followed for years. But you don't, other than she's got her website, but you don't hear her, you don't see her stepping up at all.
No, the members of my Facebook group, she seems to be a polarizing character. Herself and Nick Pope are very polarizing characters. When I even posit a poll question or mention a case or a book that they've authored, I get very polarized commentary. And I have set rules in my group to keep that down, but for some reason they're either liked or disliked, and the dislike is pretty much the same thing as disrespect, right, as opposed to before. Yeah, I don't know why that is.
So do you think they're just staying in the shadows to see what happens?
Perhaps. They may be cautious. I mean, a cautious approach is never a bad thing. I mean, examining the data that's available and waiting to see what transpires as time goes on, that's never a bad thing. A rash decision-making, rash position-taking really doesn't work in this field. It takes time and effort to really examine everything in front of you before you arrive at your position. It allows you to defend your position much better than just taking one up quickly and then not really having done your homework to get there. So, I don't know. They may be cautiously kind of waiting by the wayside, behind the shadows, and just letting them see what's going on. But I don't know. What's changed? Another thing that's changed is when you had a Randall or a Friedman or a Hynek, if you didn't like their positions, if you disagreed with them, that didn't equate disrespecting them.
No.
In today's environment, it does. People that don't like Nick Pope and don't like Linda Moulton Howe, they simply don't respect them. It's different now. I don't know why. Maybe that's a reflection of society as a whole, but that's changed, and maybe that has influenced their. And I'm putting words in their mouth, perhaps, but maybe that's influenced their decision to kind of just keep, by the wayside. Because when people disagree with you professionally, but they still respect you, that's fine. That's acceptable behavior. But when you're disrespected in your field, it can motivate some people to just kind of not be as vocal. They don't want to be attacked. They don't want to be disrespected, and I understand that. So Maybe that's their motivation, or maybe they're just, I don't know. I might be just being just objective about it, but, it seems like they're just kind of gone quiet as of late. So.
And with that, I'd agree. Because you got Dr. David Jacobs, who was the first abduction researcher that I found in '94. You've got. I think you're absolutely right. You got Nick Pope, you got Linda Moulton Howe, you've got David Jacobs, but you don't. You haven't heard from David Jacobs in years anyway. But we've got others in this field that could step up, but they're not even moving. And yeah, it does. It makes me think they're like the rest of us, waiting to see what happens. What's your thoughts, Dave?
Oh, man, that's
a deep breath.
Question. That is a deep question right now, guys.
Deep thoughts,
I think, Eric, I'm going to answer this way, and I don't think it's an answer you'll like, but I think everybody is getting so exhausted with trying to find out the who, what, where, when, why, and the how with everything that we're running around in circles. And, to try and put a finger on anything to get specific, I don't think we even know where to try and get specific anymore. And it's very difficult as a field with the amount of brilliancy of people in this field to see it the way it is right now. I mean, this isn't even organized chaos.
I agree. And I don't know. It's disturbing in that you don't even know where to turn if you need. I know Will. I know you. You don't know where to turn if you need the help with the research, with the answers, with. Yeah, beyond organized chaos is a perfect example of it. And I expect that of the paranormal field as a whole, but ufology has always had a backbone.
Yeah, I mean the problem is there's so many. The problem that we have is there's so many different narratives going on right now, gentlemen. That how do you even figure out which path to go down? Because every path is so different. You have the TTSA path, you have the anti-TTSA path, you have the experiencers path, you have the contactees path, you have the abductees paths, you have the download path. You have so many different paths that some are either complete woo and others are just complete nonsense, that we really don't know which direction to go. And we're being pulled in so many different directions as ufologists that it is difficult to try and even map anything together. I mean, William and I, along with Everett Thiemer, have sat on the phone for hours at times trying to put timelines together to figure this out, because I think the timelines are important, and we don't see a lot of that really happening in the field. All right, people just want to guesstimate. The time for guesstimations is over. It really is. I mean, even some of the skeptics out there, and I consider William a skeptic, but I think he would agree with me. Some of the skeptics out there are so close-minded that you could put an alien from Zeta Reticuli right in front of them, and they'll ask you point blank, "Where's the alien?"
Yeah, agreed. Yep. They give skeptics a bad name. It's horrible. And you're right about the different aspects, what different angles you can take. If we go back 40 years, you had individuals, researchers I'm talking about, that took the nuts and bolts angle. Other ones took the interdimensional angle. Other ones that specialized in abduction research. You mentioned Mr. Jacobs, Bud Hopkins, John Mack. They each took a different aspect of the UFO field. They didn't always agree with their positions, but they took their separate approach, and they were able to interlace it with other individuals that had a different take to attempt to come to some consensus as to some possible answers. So they could talk to each other, and they interacted on a better level. I recall Jacques Vallée would not really speak to Bob Hopkins. Professionally, they just didn't get along. I don't know about their personal lives, but Vallée did not. He was not enamored with the whole scenario of alien abductions. I don't know what his position is now. I haven't heard any of his work as of late, but these different researchers attacked the issue from different angles, attacked different aspects, and could interact with each other in a cordial scientific way. Now that's gone, and we're so distracted by this TTSA scenario, this disclosure scenario. A lot of researchers aren't doing research. They're not researching the problem. They're researching the noise. All these other scenarios have distracted us from researching the actual UFO phenomenon itself, and that's a huge problem. So all this chaos is distracting us from the actual in-depth research of what may or may not be going on, and that's just horrible.
And what's going on the sidelines while all this is going on, you look at New Fork, you look at Filer's Files, you look at the reporting centers, they're still getting enormous amounts of sightings. And again, you can figure only about 10% of actual sightings are reported. So that tells me, we've got more sightings going on in 2019, which was the purpose of the show, was what's going on in 2019, but they're on the rise. Whether people are reporting them or not, they still seem to be on the rise. I get private messages almost daily from other continents talking about the sightings they're seeing.
Yeah.
Which is why I do see a rise. And again, is it because everyone's got a cell phone and they're taking pictures? Are people outside more? It's summer. I expect sightings to go up. But we're talking back in January when it's still winter. The people are still talking about UFOs.
And to build upon that statement, you're right. The vast majority of sightings are not reported. So that's one thing. Two, the vast majority of sightings are mundane. They're not extraterrestrial. So, from a numerical standpoint, it takes a Herculean effort to look through every single case to get to the ones that are really, really fascinating, the ones that are really thought-provoking. And with us spending time distracted, it takes us away from the effort to find those cases that really bear fruit, that are fascinating, that are evidence-based, that have multiple witnesses, that really bring this field to the fore. It's a horrible situation. I mean, the UFO field has always suffered from a lack of field investigators. We've always had a shortage of field investigators to investigate all the thousands of sightings that happen every year.
Right.
It's a horrible situation, And then add to the fact that a lot of researchers and investigators are distracted by this scenario, so their main work, they're not focused on it as much as they were before. It makes it even worse. My big worry is that a major case that would really prove the extraterrestrial, or whatever the ultimate explanation for this scenario is, whatever the explanation for the UFO enigma is, a major case may fall through the cracks. It may fall through the cracks because it's either not reported or not investigated in time.
Right.
that's a possibility. That's happened in the past. There have been major cases that weren't investigated the way they should have been because of a lack of investigators, or there was some other noise going on in the community that distracted them from that. So,
completely agree. All right, so we're coming to the end of the show. So, William, do you have a website?
You can find my work on Facebook. My interactive UFO group is entitled "You for Real: A Historical Review," and I also have a personal blog on Facebook, cleverly entitled William Pullen. So that's where everyone can find me.
Outstanding. And Dave, where can we find Spaced Out Radio?
On spacedoutradio.com, we have our scheduling there. We're doing some upgrades to our website, which will be coming out very soon. If you want to follow me on social media, Spaced Out Radio, just type it in on Facebook. It'll be right there. You can follow me on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram, Dave Scott SOR.
Awesome. Thank you. And Keith, you've got books coming out now.
I do. And we've got a Facebook page now, Elderbach, which is the actual title of the book. Well, that's the end of it. But you can find Inner Voice Enterprises on Facebook and Ronald Keith Andrews, as well as on YouTube and on LinkedIn and Twitter.
Outstanding. You're actually, you got a Facebook page, and good. You're getting marketed out there.
Trying to.
Where can we find you on YouTube?
Under Ronald Keith Andrews.
And are you still doing YouTube videos?
Trying to. Of course, the mess I end up with this year really put a kibosh on him for a bit.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. And Chris and Brent, you guys still there?
We are.
Okay, outstanding. Thank you for being on the show tonight. Our quiet listeners that should have been asking questions.
Just as you said, just listening.
All right, so to find Forest Moon Paranormal for any kind of paranormal emergencies you've got, you can find us on Facebook. Just look for Forest Moon Paranormal, and we're always there with all kinds of interesting paranormal news. People post their pictures, and we can analyze them and see if we can get you some help. And we have a spaghetti feed coming up August 11th to help fund Paracon. Whoa, what time was that? Do you remember, Chris?
What is it for?
It's pancake feed.
What did I say? I said spaghetti. I'm sitting here spacing out. Yeah, pancake feed. That's we have a pancake feed. August 11th.
It's 8 to 2. August 11th.
Yep, and we'll get more information out. We discussed spaghetti feed. Pancake feed. That's it. We're doing a pancake breakfast fundraiser, August 11th. Now, all the details will be up in the group. You can send me a message, and I'll get you the information. So I want to thank our crew tonight, Chris and Brent Dodge from the FMP Extended Care and Astral team. We got R. Keith Andrews, our alien race specialist, Dave Scott, Spaced Out Radio, and William Pullen, UFO researcher. So next week, July 20th, we'll be talking... What are we talking? We're talking Mysteries of the Mountains. And we're going to be talking a little bit of David Paulides, Missing 401. Some of the creatures that are out there that, well, it covers, Fae, Bigfoot, aliens, and anything else that's mysterious. So again, keep your eyes to the skies, folks, and thank you for being on. Thank you for listening to the show tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight on S4, the official voice of Forest Moon Paranormal. You can contact S4 through our website at www.s-4radio.com or on Facebook. Make sure you give us a like on our page and join the Forest Moon Paranormal group. If you are interested in advertising, take a look at our packages and contact Cole or Eric at 1-360-999-2830. Again, thank you. And remember, keep your eyes to the sky.